Hey Zach, how's it going?
All right, I guess.
Okay, sounds
Hmm,
good. I'm exhausted. I was out of the house for like 12 hours today.
same.
Yeah, and it sucked and I didn't like it. But we're here to talk about something else. Star Wars. We're here to talk about Star Wars.
And you love Star Wars,
I love the Star War. So
so this is great.
yeah, and I have. I guess you're the Star Wars casual. I'm the core fan. I don't know if I'd quite say I'm like
Hardcore.
hardcore, but like I'm a serious fan, I guess you could say. So
Are you a
so yeah.
prequel stan?
Well, I guess the audience is about to find out. If I hadn't
Stay
realized
tuned. Yeah.
if you hadn't figured it out from the other episodes, we've already done episodes 4, 5, and 6. You can see those on our channel.
Hmm.
If you haven't seen those already, and if you had watched those, you would get little hints that no, I am not. I'm
Damn,
not a prequel stan.
it's like that.
I probably would have been when I was much younger, when they were first coming out. I think I liked the movies. I mean, I have to be honest. I do still like the movies.
Uh
I'm
huh.
not. I'm not going to say that I don't like them because that's not entirely honest. I do get enjoyment out of them. But I think I probably got more out of them when I was younger. Even though I do distinctly remember, it wasn't when I do remember when I went and saw this movie. But I in theaters. But I also remember one time when I was over at a friend's house and it was like there are two brothers, my friends Peter and Andrew, and I was closer friends with Peter, his younger brother Andrew. He had a group of friends over. Peter had his friends over, and then we like some of us camped outside. I don't know. It was fun. But I remember we like got up and we went inside and we were looking for breakfast, and they were upstairs watching episode one, and I was like, "Why are we watching this boring movie?" And I was
Hmm.
like, "Just skip to the good parts."
Damn.
And I was like, and I was in like sixth grade then, so like when I first saw it, I was probably in like second or third grade. It was summer 1999. I don't really remember exactly what grade I was in then. If I thought about it, I'd probably remember, um, but yeah. So even just a few years later, I was already like kind of looking down on this movie, and I didn't really know why. But before we get into many more details, what is your history with episode one, Zach?
Yeah,
You were a young'un when this came out, right?
yeah. I was way too young when this came out. In
Mm,
fact, it's like I had barely any memory of it, but it's like the prequels were the ones that I grew up on.
mm.
And maybe that explains why I'm not such a hardcore Star Wars fan now. But
Yeah.
I
Maybe.
mean, it didn't stick, so it's kind of fresh watching this now. I think like a couple, 2 or 3 years, 4 years ago, I watched it.
Mm.
Um, but I remember falling asleep. I distinctly remember falling asleep. So this is the first time I watched it all the way through that I can remember.
Wow. Wow, that's kind of impressive.
And I mean, I don't know
It's-
that I made it through. Yeah.
yeah, okay. Well, yeah, that and I remember when I was watching it this most recent time, there were a couple times I was just looking down at my phone and like just not really paying attention.
No, I was fully invested. I was like,
Okay, well, that's good.
because I'm like, I know this episode in particular does not have a good reputation, and
Mm.
I know there's a particular blight which I have in the bottom right corner of the screen on here. Is an interesting character. So, but like Jar Jar Binks was an enigma to me because it's like I knew of his basically meme status in the Star
Hmm.
Wars universe, but it's like I have to go back and reevaluate and see and be like, is he actually that bad?
Right.
And
What is your conclusion that you've come to? Is he that bad?
I think he's pretty bad. I,
He's pretty bad. He's pretty bad.
I found.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think there was like a single scene that with Jar Jar Binks where I was like amused by Jar Jar Binks. I had like
I think
maybe one or two, but
yeah, I'm trying to think if there's like I feel like there's something in this movie, and I can't remember what. There is like one thing that kind of gets me a little bit, but um, but I think it's for the most part other characters' reactions to him that are more amusing than he actually is.
Yeah. Even though
And they're not even that amusing and they're not even that amusing to begin with. So
yeah, and it's like most people kind of take him like way more serious than you think too. It's like they don't a lot of the characters don't even really react that much to him being like outrageous. It's like, oh, that's just Gungans for you.
yeah, or something.
But there was he just has weird statements that he throws out sometimes, and I'm like, it's out of nowhere. And then after at least the first portion of the movie, it becomes like Jar Jar Binks just becomes like, let's just throw in a little Jar Jar Binks gag every now and then to remind you he's still there.
Oh, totally.
And it's like he's not even adding anything to the plot anymore.
Yeah, I know. Every time they showed 3PO and R2D2 talking about Jar Jar Binks, which happened like a couple of times, I was just like, "Hey, remember us? Remember how we were so much more entertaining comic relief than this thing?" Yeah, I mean, like, okay, so the guy who plays him, Ahmed Best, he gets a really bad rap. I think Jar Jar Binks is pretty bad. I think he's far from the worst thing in this movie.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, everything with the Gungans is just kind of embarrassing. Like it's kind of like it's just kind of pathetic to watch.
Even the
like I was watching this, oh my gosh, I was like, this is like a stereotype of something, but I don't really know what. I think it's supposed to be like an African stereotype or something. Like I'm just like, what is this?
Something
what
is problematic about this.
Is this? Yeah, I mean, there.
But what is it exactly about Jar Jar Binks that you think makes him so bad? Is it the like this language that probably doesn't help?
I think it's more of what he adds, or should I say detracts from the movie. Like this movie is just all over the place tonally. It doesn't know what it wants to be. It's a political drama. It's a kids action movie. It's like an exploration of a young child who.
Yeah, it's an origin story.
It's an origin story. It's so there's a very well circulated kind of like behind the scenes thing. This is like the last Star Wars that got like a really good behind the scenes documentary. Probably the reason why we haven't seen anymore is because wow, there are some problems behind the scenes with this movie.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, it's just like George Lucas is just completely and utterly in control of everything at this point. He doesn't have people challenging him. So much to the point when it comes to editing this film, what I was getting to with this is that there's a very well circulated part where Ben Burtt, who is also the sound designer for Star Wars, is like, so here in the span of like a minute, we go from escape to slightly comedic with Jar Jar to the death of a hero to adventure. He's just like, it's just mashing so much together, like to the point where even George Lucas has to admit, I may have gone too far in a few places. Which you'll see that line every once in a while on the internet, and that's why. Yeah, I mean look, the Red Letter Media guys have done a much better job explaining like the problems of this movie in amusing, nitpicking, but also constructive fashion, because they do like, there are like things that they have problems, that they critique in this movie that are definite nitpicks. But because they all kind of pile up, and because there's more serious issues with the movie, it really starts to just drag the whole movie down when there's just all these things that are just horribly wrong with the movie. There's not really a main character in this movie, if you really stop to think about it. Who? I'll ask you that because it's been asked before. I don't know if you've seen the Plinkett reviews actually.
No.
Okay, if you haven't seen them, I'll say this to everybody who's watching this video. If you haven't seen them, watch them, and if you've seen them before, watch them again because they're great.
Mm.
Um, I make a habit of watching them up on occasion. They're just fun and entertaining, and they will break apart why these movies are so bad. Um, Much better than I can.
So who's the main character?
Who's the main character of this movie?
I would say Qui-Gon Jinn is the closest.
I guess, but like he sort of. I guess I would probably
He's
say
like the
that
role
too.
the role that shouldn't be the main character, like the
Yeah,
mentor. But
yeah, yeah.
he's definitely present the most in the movie.
He probably is. And honestly,
And he,
like watching this movie again, like Liam Neeson is trying his hardest with the material, man. He really is. I mean, he's just kind of boring, but and normal, and he's not really all that interesting. I mean, the most interesting stuff you hear about him is like, boy, you defied the council. If you wouldn't do that, they'd let you on the Jedi Council. And I was
yeah,
like, oh, I wish we'd seen that character a little bit more.
but he's a rebellious type. He paves his own path.
Yeah, which I actually kind of prefer because we see the Jedi Council in this movie, and watching this movie again, I kind of hate them, like all of
You
them.
just hate them.
Yeah,
How do you have
they're just like stuffy, boring. Like,
Well,
oh, we
yeah.
can't trade in this boy because he's too old.
I mean,
We have
I mean,
we have this weird cult where we can only train them when they're
no, no, yeah.
3, and it's like 9 years old, guys. Come
Well,
on.
I mean, it's all weird in general, like, but
Yeah.
it's like a weird the Jedi code and whatnot. But I mean, if you think about it, Qui-Gon Jinn is the reason for Darth Vader, right? Like he's to blame.
Because he believed so much in Anakin
In this
Skywalker.
Anakin Skywalker. If they just walked out and be like, all right, I'm not going to train him, and if he didn't bet and to free
Yeah, that
him
bet
as a
makes like
slave.
that bet makes like no sense either. Like there was like 6 bets that he made with Watto, and I was like, I'm still trying to figure it out, man. I don't know how it's like.
What do you
But
mean?
whatever,
What do you mean? What other bets are there?
Okay, so like he well, the bet with Anakin is pretty straightforward. I
Yeah.
think that's pretty straightforward. But then like the earlier bet, they made like 2 or 3 bets in the span of like a minute,
Mm-hmm.
and like some of it was like, and then but like Watto still loses everything, even though the whole point of the first couple of bets they made was that Watto would be able to still keep his money, but then he used the money that
Yeah, I forgot
he would
about
have, but apparently he used the money that he didn't even have to bet on Sebulba, who lost.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It was very like needlessly complicated.
Like, I mean,
Um,
and the fact that, like, I'm just saying, it's kind of like a baby Hitler scenario. If you were in that situation, you got to go back and kill little Anakin. Would you kill little Anakin?
well, no, I mean he brought balance to the Force eventually.
Well,
It's just caused the deaths of thousands and millions, probably actually more like billions because
it's
this is a
not.
galaxy. So it probably caused the death of billions of people.
The ends do not justify the means for me. That is.
I mean, not for me neither, but in Star Wars they kind of do.
Well, you're also
Well,
like
see-
you're also embracing the dark side when you're like when you kill a bad guy too. So,
I don't necessarily know if that's the case, but
but
because the Jedi kill people.
But if you just
When they
didn't,
have to.
if you just didn't bet and like rig that die so that he would get,
If
Anakin's
he'd gone
slave-
to another dealer, Watto says like Watto used the whole like no one else has this rare part. The Qui-Gon's like, let's go to one of the smaller dealers, and then he goes to this one, and he's like, no one else has this part, I swear, and he just believes him. They don't go anywhere else. They just no, we got to get him. He's got the part, and there's something about this boy who can't act. There's something about him.
you don't like the boy. You don't like
Oh,
little
man.
little Anakin.
Well, poor Jake Lloyd. Last I knew, he was in a mental institution. I don't know what he's
Jeez.
doing now. Heart goes out to him, man. That's rough. But
Is it because he played little Anakin?
no, I think he had some other issues.
Okay.
But I certainly don't think the criticism and hatred over the years probably didn't help.
Yeah.
But
My least favorite part is whenever he would yell "Yippee!"
oh my
I'm like,
gosh,
no one yells "Yippee!"
No. It's particularly about like the most like normal things. Is like, yeah, you clean up and I'll let you go home a little early. Yippee! No, it's just like, oh, sweet. Not yippee! And it was like you were just talking in Tatooinean, and now you're talking in just like whatever. You say yippee in basic, and it's like, oh,
yeah.
Yeah, basic is the standard language of Star Wars. So
it's basic as fuck.
it is, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well,
and I also loved the line when he was like he was piloting the ship, and he's like, "This is tense." I'm like, "Whoa." He's like trying to describe the scene. I'm like, "What's going on?" The little boy just called this
pod
tense.
racing. It's like you just killed a ton of people, like on that ship.
It's not really.
And you're like, no, this
racing.
Is pod racing.
Yippee!
Like, yeah, this 9-year-old just murdered like hundreds of people on that starship, but he doesn't understand. Yeah, and that's the problem is with if you that I think is actually one of the problems with introducing Anakin Skywalker when he's this young, because like he has like almost no bearing on the plot of this movie other than blowing up the ship at the end, which could have been literally anyone else. You could have had Obi-Wan do it. Well, then Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, I guess. Yeah, the Darth Maul thing. Yeah, I don't know. You could have had like a young. I'm trying to think of like literally any other Star Wars person. You could have had a young someone else do it if you wanted to make a tie in the movie, and then that would have been exciting. But no, it had to be Anakin Skywalker, who's a little boy. Yeah, I mean, I think to me that's kind of one of the missteps is introducing him when he's so young to the audience, introducing him when he can't, like, he either doesn't understand or has no control over what's going on in the plot, particularly since George Lucas is at this point framing the entire saga as his story, even though the first 3 films were clearly Luke Skywalker was the protagonist. Mm-hmm. Another problem is that I think that you look at, so to touch on the score for a minute, I think this is still, I say this about almost every movie, I do think this is some of my favorite John Williams work in Star Wars. We'll get to Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. I think of the prequels, this one's probably my favorite. I think he did such an interesting job of blending old themes into just completely brand new ones. He had to create a new soundscape for this universe 30 years earlier than when we saw it. Mm-hmm. And I think he did such a fascinating job with a lot of the stuff that he composed. I really like the Trade Federation theme a lot. That's just it's an interesting, fun march. I like it. But Anakin's theme in particular, it plays over the end credits near the end of the end credits. It's a really nice theme. It's a really great theme. But one of the cool things about it is that it actually uses the Imperial March, which is Darth Vader's theme, I guess. It uses the Imperial March in like a major key. So it recontextualizes that theme to make it less domineering and more. It's a theme of a little boy, but. Yeah. Towards the end of the theme, there's just a hint where it goes back to the normal minor sort of the key music. I'm tired. I can't really speak music right now, but I said to my parents after we watched this movie, I wish that Anakin Skywalker was in this movie, because it's like that to me that darker tinge on the end of the theme is the character that I want Anakin Skywalker to be. I want him to be more complicated. I wanted him to be like a kind of a kid with a little bit of a dark streak. He's just kind of a sweet kid.
Yeah, but I mean, doesn't that kind of justify Qui-Gon's whole thing? Like, if he had an actual like clear dark streak, wouldn't he just be like, yeah, maybe you're right. He does have.
Well, no, that would have been something like well, with training, we'll be able to get that under control, type of thing. All Jedi have temptation to the dark side.
But if you give the context of like where Anakin's story is going, then I think it makes it gives it a little more impact when you have like these.
I think it makes less. I think it makes less sense.
Well, when you have like Yoda saying that there's a lot of fear, he senses a lot of fear, and they're all like, Qui-Gon seems like he's in the right here, but we know he's not ultimately. So I think it's just kind of an interesting lens to be able to look at the movie in that way.
Here's the thing. I think all the ideas that we're talking about. I mean, I have my own wishes for how this should have played out, but I think the idea is good. What you're saying, those ideas, those themes are interesting. They're just not executed well at all in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem. That's the main problem is that George Lucas wrote and directed the prequels, and he's even a self-admitted saying that he's bad at screenwriting. And why he just is like, I guess he just felt like it's like, well, it has to be me because I'm the only person that can do it or something. We can just see from the original trilogy, he's an amazing ideas guy. I think he has awesome ideas, and that to me is the strongest part of this movie. That's what makes this movie really watchable. There's a lot of cool things and ideas in this movie that are introduced to the universe, to the Star Wars galaxy and everything, and I think that is its strongest suit. That and the score, John Williams doing his best to try to save the movie. Yeah, I mean, like pod racing, man. Pod racing's awesome. That's such an awesome idea.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it completely stops the halts the progress of the movie.
Yeah.
Like completely. Like they probably again in script writing, you probably could have found a more interesting way to blend that more into the story. Like maybe make the bet, maybe make it so that the bet wasn't so like, oh well, obviously he's gonna win.
But and it's kind of like, you know, with why I love like The Empire Strikes Back so much, because they have the two different, like, well, even Return of the Jedi, they had two different plots going on and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then this one, it's just like all the characters are here, so like the pod racing, you just have to watch the pod racing because it's like there's nothing else to cut to. You have Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, they're all here.
Yeah, that's like the best sequence in the whole movie.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, just watching it again, I was just like, this is just so fun. And to me, that's what I want from Star Wars. I want to be having fun while I'm watching it. And the most of the rest of the movie is not fun to watch. There's just so many boring scenes of them just like talking and that's an interesting thing to do with Star Wars. They have a political focus. But it's just not executed in a way that makes it interesting to watch. I don't know. That's kind of my problem ultimately with the movie. Is it's just not as interesting as the ideas would lead you to believe, because the execution just is not there at all. And I like it. It's overall is a mostly enjoyable watch, even if you're just laughing at, wow, this makes no sense, or huh, why did that happen? Like the whole goal of the movie is that like Palpatine is trying to manipulate the Trade Federation so that he can make his invasion or their invasion legal, which will give him power because everyone will lose faith in the Chancellor.
Mm-hmm.
But there are things that he commands them to do in the movie that completely go against that plan, like consistently. And he's like, all right, we'll kill the two ambassadors that the Chancellor sent.
Yeah.
And it's like, why? They could meet with the Trade Federation. They'd just be like, no, there's not going to be negotiations. We are invading, and we're gonna do that. And then by the time they get back, they'll have taken over the whole planet because they would have just forced her to do it. She would have done it. She would have signed it because she was already throughout the movie. Whenever we switch to her, she's always like, we got to go back and do something. It's like she would have signed it if she was backed into a corner, because she wouldn't want her people to suffer.
Mm-hmm.
Which we never actually see if they do or not. So who knows if they were telling the truth? Because I don't know. I guess it doesn't matter if the bad guys are actually telling the truth or not.
I also like how Palpatine, like, just real quick gets that nomination, like, off screen. And he comes back, he's like, oh yeah, I got the nomination. Oh, wow.
A surprise!
That worked
To
out.
be sure, but a welcome one.
Okay.
Yeah. He's also, to me, is a highlight of this movie. I think he just does a slamming job as a young emperor, young Palpatine, Frank Palpatine, as me and my brother like to call him, because one of his lines is, "I must be Frank, Your Majesty," when he's like talking to her.
Yeah.
So I must be Frank, Your Majesty. And there's like, wouldn't it just be interesting to have a normal named character? Like we had a Luke, why can't we have a Frank?
Frank, yeah.
Frank Palpatine. And news of the Senate, Frank Palpatine has been nominated for Supreme Chancellor of the Galactic Senate.
So
his name is Sheev.
So what do you think of the lightsaber fight between Obi-Wan and Darth Maul?
So good.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Like that's my favorite part of the movie for me.
Yeah.
You know, pod racing, but yeah, I think the lightsaber fight's the most enjoyable thing to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I hate that it's cutting back and forth between stuff that's not as interesting.
And then Obi-Wan's just like running, and then it's just like traps. Watches, runs, trapped again.
There's a no that I felt.
I know. I was gonna say another no. No. Yes.
Yeah, that's a no that I could feel in the pit of my soul, though. That's like that one makes sense.
Would it have been better if he said nothing though and just went?
It would have been like, that's not Obi-Wan. Is it? Though that's another thing. There's way too little Obi-Wan in this movie.
He's kind of there, and then he's like,
he's just kind of there, and like we're told, oh, he's impatient and impetuous, and he wants to do stuff, but we're more told that than actually really shown that.
Yeah, and you would think he would be more of a focus, like I said, than Qui-Gon, who's like the mentor figure, but it's like Qui-Gon's doing 80% of the stuff, and he's just like watching, and it's like, okay, I guess you're gonna take the reins now, but it doesn't like feel earned that he's like, all right, now I'm gonna go train Anakin. It's just like, oh, well, he has to do it. He's the only one there to do it. So
he doesn't even really seem like he
doesn't really care that much. Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think that was a thing in the Plinkett review. It's like, in fact, it seems like he's more annoyed by him than anything. He's just like, who's this stupid little kid that I gotta sit around with? And it's like, it doesn't really give off the whole, like, yeah, he was a really good friend. I mean, obviously we'll get that in the later movies a little bit more, but it was just kind of weird because it was like, there feels like there's literally no connection between him and Anakin. Especially another one of my favorite parts. The boy is dangerous as they're like walking around, and he's just standing. He's standing like right next to him when he says that. He's just, you can see him in the shot.
I remember
it's like right over there, and I was like, hey, you might want to be a little quieter talking about
the
how
boy
much
is evil as hell.
Yeah. They all sense it. What do you think about midichlorians?
What do I think about them? I mean,
yeah, about scientifically explaining the Force.
I mean,
scientifically explaining a mystical religious type thing.
Well, I mean, do we have any reason to believe it's not, that this belief isn't based in a science? You know, it could.
Literally everything in the first three movies would
like,
tend to indicate that that's not.
Yeah, Anakin's midichlorians were off the charts.
Yeah,
even more than Yoda.
Yeah, I mean, tracking someone's Force sensitivity, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Explaining
midichlorians as microscopic life forms that live inside you that give you sensitivity to the Force somehow because you work together with them
within your cells,
which is just weird. I mean, it's dumb. That's my problem with that.
So you just
and the thing is like they mentioned it takes away from like the I don't want to say the mystery, but it kind of. I mean it's trying to just like, we'll explain what the Force is, and it's like, but the Force is like, it's supposed to be more of a spiritual type, mystic kind of thing, you know? It's not supposed to be like, and
that's my favorite Disney Plus original, the midichlorian. It's out now. It's got a couple episodes.
Yeah, it's got 3 episodes out when we're recording this. They're all really good.
I haven't seen it yet.
Over this. I recommend watching it over this movie.
Yeah.
It's probably the best Star Wars content since Disney acquired Star Wars, and I don't say that lightly actually. But it's very good.
Do you like Padme in this movie? What do you think of Padme? Do you think?
Uh, oh, well, that was another thing I commented on. I was like, so because Keira Knightley and Natalie Portman switcheroo all the time
They look identical, yeah.
because they look really similar at this point in their lives, and especially with that makeup on, you almost like can't tell the difference unless you're looking
Yeah.
for it. And it's just like it's like this, the weird scene where it's like R2D2 saves the day. That whole sequence is just like makes me want to bash my head against a wall. But them escaping. But the that was like, okay, so the queen, she's not actually the queen. She's sending the queen to go clean the droid so she can have that classic scene with Jar Jar Binks. And that's it.
Yeah.
She has like a 2 minute, like not even, it's like a 30-second conversation with Jar Jar Binks where she's like, "You're a Gungan, aren't you?" Uh-huh.
Yes, I am a Gungan.
Like,
Remember that
yeah, we
classic
were like-
line from Jar Jar Binks? Yes,
Yeah.
I am a Gungan.
Yes,
Thanks
I am
for
a
asking.
Gungan. A Gungan.
Mesa
yeah.
Gungan. Thank you for asking. Yeah. Can you explain this quote to me that I wrote down from Jar Jar Binks? Where
Okay.
he's like, the queen's being...
Oh,
the queen's being
I know what
grossly
you're gonna
nice.
say.
Misa thinks, Pitty hot.
So I don't remember this line until I actually went and saw this in theaters again. I saw this movie when Lucasfilm was going to be doing the 3D conversions of all the Star Wars films. I went and saw this in theaters again.
Yeah.
And I don't remember this line at all. Like, that was the first time I saw it. I was like, did he say that? And, like, I talked to somebody and they're like, oh, yeah, he said that. I was like, I don't think he did. I've never heard that line before.
What is that
And it's
line?
so weird. And I don't like it at all. It's
Pretty hot.
so uncomfortable. Because
Because like,
Yeah.
I had, just because of the area, the room I was in when listening to this, I had the subtitles on, but I'm grateful I had the subtitles on so I could catch all these Jar Jar Binks lines. But
These
it's
classic-
and they
classic
spell
lines.
it perfectly like how he's pronouncing it in the subtitles. The queen's being grossly nice, Misa thinks. Pitty hot. Pretty hot.
hot.
It's pretty hot.
yeah, man, that's real
Oh,
hot.
Pretty hot.
Nice.
Yeah.
Pretty hot. Yeah.
I don't understand. Like,
Well, also bomb bad. That's bomb bad.
uh,
They say that like to mean it's bad or that's great.
yeah, I don't like that. I don't
Yeah,
like
I don't
that
like
at
it
all. I'm like, what are
That's
you
bomb
saying?
bad.
Bomb bad.
He's a bomb bad general. And it's like, does that
What?
make him a bombardier? Is it a bombardier general? Is that what he's making him? I don't. Yeah.
No idea. I was so concerned when I heard him say that line about the queen. I was like,
Trust me, it made me more concerned because I was like, I've seen this movie like probably 6 times before this, and I don't remember that ever happening before. Maybe I like blocked it out of my memory because of how horribly scarring it is.
Well,
But
Jar Jar's just saying what we're all thinking. You know,
yeah,
he speaks for the audience.
he does.
Pretty hot, right?
No, yeah, my cat wants to come in, so I think it's about time we start wrapping this up.
Also, I like that the Tusken Raiders just start shooting when they're pod racing, and then it's just like fair game. It's like, oh, it looks like Tusken Raiders are out
Yeah.
shooting the people that are actually racing.
Whoa,
Deal
there
with
goes
it.
Quadranero's power coupling. Yeah, that character is great.
You like that?
The announcer,
Yeah.
I've always liked him.
Yippee! All right.
Whoops, looks like little Skywalker's having trouble off the starting line.
All right.
Yeah.
So, what would you give it out of 10 score?
This is tough for me.
So
man.
you gave A New Hope a 9,
Yeah.
Empire Strikes Back 10,
Mm-hmm.
and then Return of the Jedi 8.5.
I think I'm gonna give this movie a solid, and this is surprising me a little bit. I think I'm gonna give it a solid 5, just a straight across the board 5.
Jesus. So low.
Yeah. I mean,
Nice.
man, this movie's not great, man. I mean,
But there's so much to
it's
love about it.
they're kind of, yeah, and that's why I'm giving it a 5 because there's still practical effects. You know, when they go down to the Gungan city, that's a miniature when they're
Okay.
going down to that. That's amazing. Um,
Well,
the
I forgot to mention that I really didn't like the CGI in this, even though it was like it was expected. I'm like, it's like so much less effective than the practical thing. Even
it
like
is.
seeing Jabba the Hutt CGI, I'm
Yeah,
like, eh.
yeah. Jabba CGI. It was, yeah. When I was watching this movie, I was actually surprised at how I was not as distracted with this movie. And the thing with the CG, because it's not great, it has not aged particularly well, but there's less of it than I was remembering. But trust me, we'll get to more. We'll get to it when it's much worse. Because another thing I was going to say, they're still filming at actual locations. They went back and filmed in Tunisia again
Okay.
for the Tatooine scenes, and you can tell that they're really there. They're really in these real locations. I mean, obviously some of it is fantastical stuff in Coruscant and stuff, but they're on like
Mm.
real sets and when they have to, and then they're in real locations when they have to too, and it's great. I think it works really well, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the ideas. I like what he was trying to go for. The execution just kills this movie. It really does because the script is just terrible. Just terrible. The acting, they're doing the best they can, but then we hired Jake Lloyd, the little kid from Jingle All the Way, to be in this movie for some reason.
Are you an angel?
Ugh, an angel. I hear the deep space pilots talk about them. They're supposed to
The
be the
most
most
beautiful.
beautiful creatures in the universe.
He's
So,
like
okay,
such a
here's the thing.
romantic. Wow.
There's in that documentary, which I think is just called In the Beginning or something like that, or The Beginning is what it's called. It's about episode 1. They show the top 3 candidates for the read for Anakin Skywalker.
Okay. Yeah.
The first kid, he's not really that great. Second kid, I was shocked that they didn't pick him because he reads that line, "Are you an angel?" That's the test line they're all reading.
Oh.
He reads it so well that I was like, "Why didn't you pick that kid?" Because then they show Jake Lloyd fumbling over every single one of his
Damn.
lines
Well,
in that test
Shows
read.
he's got heart. He's got heart, kid.
Shows he's got something. It shows that George Lucas is like, "Oh, this is a cool little kid. I kind of like him."
Gonna set up
Yes, I should-
this hot love story, nice and early.
I mean, this is
Pitty
14 over.
hot.
Okay, anyway.
Pitty hot.
So what do you give this movie? I could keep. I love talking about this movie because it's such a complicated feelings because I like so many parts of it. Well, I don't want to say so many parts. I like parts of this movie, but just so much of it is just done so poorly.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun to watch in and of itself just because of that. So,
I would give it a 6.5 out of 10.
oh, hell, I'm Mr. Generous here.
Yeah, so that's low to me. It's a 6.5. Like I rarely ever rate a movie that low, but yeah, it's kind of a mess. But I do think there's redeemable qualities in that. It's like I think it's cool that you can, the fact that Anakin in this movie is so pure. It's like, oh, there's an added level of complexity there because
I don't.
you
think so.
know he's Darth Vader
I don't think there.
down the
I don't
line.
think there
So
is
it's like,
complexity there. That's the problem.
but so what do you want him to do? He want him to like have an evil side, be like, oh, they like
No,
say
I
some
don't-
some
like,
off color
not
comments.
Yeah, and maybe something. It's not necessarily like he has a darker side, but he's misguided, or he's just. I mean, he's grown up in such a harsh environment all his life. I'd expect him to be a little bit more, slightly more jaded and a slightly more bitter. I'd expect
Yeah.
Shmi to be that way a little bit more too. I mean, just a little bit. Like they just seem like we're content being slaves, but it's terrible. But it's like, okay, you guys are slaves, but yet you. I mean, they're slaves in like the ancient world sense of slaves. So you still have independence. It's more like indentured servitude
Yeah,
more than anything, where you're paying off a debt more or less. But it's like, yeah, No, that was another thing we didn't talk about, the fact that Anakin Skywalker is a virgin birth. So it's
Oh,
like
a
supposed to be like,
miracle! Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
yeah, it's like
miraculous.
Christ-like similarities with Anakin. Um, there's un there's some implications that they didn't really delve into too much, but I don't know if it's supposed to be. I don't know if this is like a real or not, but this is in my headcanon is that, and this is I think what I don't know, but my guess is that in a later movie, Darth Plagueis is mentioned and how he used midichlorians to manipulate life to bring life into being. So the theory is then that Shmi Skywalker was one of the experimented peoples. Though why she ended up on Tatooine and like why he didn't seem to keep track of her. Maybe he was just letting the Force figure it out from there after he made life. But
Jeez.
yeah, you like the Anakin?
I don't.
You like Jake Lloyd in this
I
movie?
don't like Anakin, but
He's just
I like the
acting.
idea of him.
Well, yeah. I mean that's what I'm saying. The ideas are there. It's just the execution isn't because it's tonally just it's trying to be everything at once, and it can't possibly be that.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of liked the interaction when he's like leaving his mother. I was like, oh, that's kind of actually sad, but
Yeah, it'd be
I don't
nice if
know.
we cared about Shmi Skywalker a little more.
Yeah,
Just kind of boring. I'm
slave
normal.
woman.
That's like everyone in this movie is just like I'm normal, more or less. Like it's
Well,
just,
that's the you don't understand the complexities of normality in Star Wars. So I give it a 6.5. You give it a 5, which gives us 5.75 out of 10.
yeah,
Wonderful
yep,
score.
yeah. That might be our lowest movie aggregate so far.
Yeah,
I think so.
yeah, because
I
we
mean,
didn't have any negative thoughts on movies really that we watched this year, did we?
no,
It was like pretty
until
much
this
all
one.
positive.
Yeah.
Pretty hot. All right.
Sorry for people who love the prequels, but I mean,
Hey,
to me, there's
I'm
not
not
really much that you can not
out.
really much you can defend in this movie.
Damn, it's the deplorable Star Wars movie.
I will give you a spoiler though. This isn't my least favorite Star Wars movie.
Shoot, it's coming.
We
No,
will get to that.
I don't know. Yeah, actually, it'll be interesting down the line. But all right, so next week we talk about Attack of the Clones are attacking, episode the
The
second.
clones are attacking. Episode the second.
The
And
clone invasion.
yeah, you should look up Ewan McGregor's reaction to when he heard the title. It's wholesome is what it is. It's beautiful.
I gotta look up this kid that could have been Anakin Skywalker, little boy too.
You should. He would have been great.
It's
I
interesting.
swear.
All right, well,
All right.
that's it. Thank you for
All right.
watching. See you next
May
time.
the force be with all of us in this time of
The queen's being grossly nice. Misa thinks. Pretty hot.